Welcome back to Q13 News this morning. So what were you taught as a kid about allowing other people to touch you? Not just the inappropriate kind, like just touch your body. And what did you teach your kids? Do you think it was enough? It's an interesting question, one that I know that we've been grappling with as parents. Amy Lang is a sex education expert based here in Seattle. Amy, I want to talk about consent and touching. Do you think we're teaching our kids enough?
Probably not. And I think one of the things that happens for adults is that when we say the word consent, we think about sexual consent, right? We have this adult lens when we talk about these things. And so I think if we kind of back up the truck a little bit and just define the word consent, it means agree, right? Do you agree to let me touch you? And when we think about it that way, it makes it a lot easier to talk to kids about consent. So consent is just agreement. And when it comes to consent and touch, it's like, is it okay for me to touch you? And you and I were just joking about, like, I would not just reach out and pet you without asking first.
But I do that to my daughter, who's 4.
Right.
So, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about this. Like, I've actually started asking her before I touch her, is it okay? Or if she tells me, hey, Dad, leave me alone, I don't try to argue with her. I say, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's awesome modeling. So when it comes to kids, it's basically the rule is ask first, especially if it's not your own kid, because kids feel like adults feel uncomfortable. And so it's holiday time. We're around relations and friends all the time. And so saying to your child, give grandma a hug or give Uncle Creepy a hug, that's not fair to your child. Your child should be able to decide whether or not they touch another grown-up. So saying, hey, do you want to give grandma a hug? Hey, do you want to give Uncle Creepy a hug? Then they can say no. And the person who has the problem usually is the other adult.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's like we're balancing this idea of like, oh, I don't want to offend anybody versus like teaching my kid that she owns or he owns their own body.
Right. And so your child needs to have, that's called having agency over their body. So they should be told that you have the right to say no to any kind of touch, even a high five, even a handshake, a hug, a kiss, a head pats. Like, they have the right to say no to that. And the way we teach them that is by demonstrating it ourselves. Now, in family life, like regular intimate family life, it's really hard. You can't constantly be saying, may I touch you? Yeah. May I touch you? Because it's exhausting. And so kids learn from body language, and we can also teach them, like if they recoil, you can say to your kid, oh yeah, I can see you're moving away from me. That means you don't want me to touch you. And they'll be like, oh, hey, that's a thing. And so you want your child to understand that and for you to be reinforcing that for them. You feel uncomfortable hugging that person. That's no problem. You don't ever have to hug them again. And also showing up and saying, I'll deal with the grown-up weirdness. You don't need to deal with the grown-up weirdness. That's my job, to make sure you're safe.
Quick question, because we only have a couple more seconds. What about a situation where somebody actually does really need to touch them? They're in the doctor's office. They do need to be examined, those kind of things. Is it okay to say, hey, you got to do this?
Yeah, so you say to them, hey, your doctor needs to look at your private parts. It's part of having an examination. They will ask first. I'll be right there. It shouldn't hurt or be painful. And then play it by ear. If they're very much like do not want that to happen, then pay attention to that, right? And doctors and nurses these days are wonderful about saying, hey, I'm going to look at your privates. Is that okay? It's really changed up. Things have really changed up. And I would say one last thing. Trust your grown-up gut. If somebody feels like they're being inappropriate with your child in some way, touching them too frequently, making comments about how they look and that feels creepy or uncomfortable to you, your intuition is really going to tell you if that's okay or not okay. You need to check in with your child. Are you comfortable with that person? Are you not comfortable with that person? And see what they say. Sometimes our actions speak louder than our words, especially with kids.
This is such good advice. I think leave your discomfort about making somebody feel rude aside and really prioritize your kids and their safety and teaching them the right messages.
Yes.
Great. Amy Lang, thank you very much, sex education expert. We appreciate it. Of course, there's more information on Amy's website, birdsandbeesandkids.com. Bill and Liz, over to you.